All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here in this afternoon session or our last pre-departure orientation for our regional efforts here in North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. And my name is Maria Luisa Garnica, and I am the Education USA Advisor here in Guatemala, based in Guatemala City. Today, please make sure that you share your questions to Q&A Mariana Hernandez here on Zoom. And if you're joining on Facebook, just drop your questions in the comment sections. Today, we'll talk about balancing mind and body and how to maintain your healthy being while being an international student in the US, right? We have three great guests who share different information, and I'll introduce them in a second. They'll make sure to emphasize the different resources available to you as an international student while being in the US, while being abroad, so that you can continue to be a great student, right? And perform really well in your academics and in your personal life. Before we get started with all of that, I want to just briefly review what Education USA is. Although you may know, we are a network from the Department of State, and we are focused on higher education in the US. So we provide accurate, comprehensive, and current information on how to study over there, either for a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And our services for introductory information are free. And you should make sure that you are in touch with your Education USA advisors in your country, in your region, even after you leave, because they can be a great resource and a great support as well, right? And we've used this framework of 5 steps to guide the process to study in the US. You first research your options, then you look at how you're going to finance your studies, although these 2 steps go hand in hand, almost parallel. Then you complete your application, you apply for your visa, which if you're here, you probably already did, and then you prepare for your departure. So right now we are in that last stretch in preparing for our departure to the US. And not only we have to, pack our souvenirs, our pictures, our home foods that we're going to miss, but we also have to pack skills and tools and be prepared mentally for what we're going to face and become resilient to adjust and be flexible to all the changes that are coming ahead. So this session is going to stay on Facebook Live. We have it on the Education USA Guatemala page, but it'll also be uploaded to YouTube as a resource for later on. So make sure that if you watched it live, you can share it with other friends that maybe are also going to the US as international students. So our guests for today, thank you so much to the 3 of you for agreeing to do this collaboration. We have Miriam Randall. She is a coordinator for international student services at Albertus Magnus College. Thanks, Miriam. Welcome. And we have Oresta Phelps. She is the interim director for international students at Winona State University. Hi, Oresta. Thanks for being here. And we have Carissa Ringo. She is the international student advisor at Western Washington University. Thanks for being here, Carissa. And as you can see, we have spread out states represented today, and that's going to be really useful. And they're all in the north, so it'll be interesting too when we talk about winter wellness, which I think is a very important thing, especially for our region, which is pretty much tropical, right? And you never know the surprises that snow or lack of sunshine can give you, right? So please, Carissa, can you start us off with the great content that you prepared for us? Thank you.
Yeah, great. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to get my slides shared here, and we can get started. So can everyone see those slides? Are they visible?
Yes, we can see them.
Great. Okay. So thank you so much again for allowing me to be a part of this presentation. I'm very excited to speak to you about this really important topic. It's so exciting that you've made your way through the process, or maybe you're just still exploring your options. But thinking about your health in a really holistic way and not just one piece of it is a really good thing to do before you embark on your study abroad journey. So excited to talk to you about what that looks like, how you find balance at Western Washington University. So first I'll just show you quickly. This is where I am located right now. So we are in Washington State, which is on the west coast of the United States near the Pacific Ocean. And you can see that Bellingham is a smaller town in between Seattle and Vancouver, BC. So we have a great location right there it's called Bellingham Bay. You can see in the picture, campus is nestled in amongst the trees right next to the bay. So we do have a lot of really great outdoor spaces, which we will talk about later, being really important in your health. But first, I just kind of want to take a 1 minute and think about assessing our own health or how we feel about it. And the first really important step is to practice this exercise with me. So we're going to inhale and exhale. And this may seem cheesy, it may seem silly to do this, but deep breathing like this is so important in a large range of experiences and activities. So maybe while you're getting prepared to move to the United States to study, you're feeling a little bit nervous. This breathing will just help you be centered. Or while you're there, while you're studying in the United States, maybe something comes up for you. I hope you remember that deep breathing, giving yourself a second to assess, and maybe think about these questions. How does your body feel right now? Are you in any pain? Are you feeling sick? What's your general energy level? Have you been sleeping enough? How often have you been feeling nervous or worried or sad? Have you laughed a lot in the last week? And how often have you engaged in physical activity or movement? These are some basic questions that you can ask yourself at any time, just to kind of get a little bit of an insight into how you're doing. And it can be really easy to forget to do this, especially when we're stressed or we're so excited about being in a new place and doing all of the activities that are available to us on campus. We forget to check in with ourselves. And that's often when illness or getting out of balance can happen, when we're not checking in. So that's a really important first step as we're thinking about health holistically. Check in with yourself. How are you doing? Today, I want to talk about health in a big range of things. So not just your physical health, but these 8 different dimensions of wellness and health. So you can see, and you might be surprised that environmental wellness is there, intellectual wellness is there. These may not be things that you would immediately think of when you're thinking of your health, but I think as we move through, you'll see all of this is involved in you being a happy, healthy international student in the United States. So after we've assessed and we know, okay, I'm not necessarily feeling my best, or, oh, I'm surprised to notice that I haven't laughed very much in the last week or something like that, then it's time to engage. It's time to figure out what resources are there on campus to help you move past and become balanced again, become healthy again. So we're going to briefly just go through those 8 dimensions and talk a little bit about some general things you can do to come into balance, to become healthy in those ways. And I know that my peers at other institutions are going to go into a lot of detail in some of these things. So I'm just going to give you an overview. So for physical health, of course, getting out, being active is really important. And on all of our campuses, there are centers for recreation, to maybe go to the gym, get exercise. Many campuses have outdoor centers. So at Western, we have this outdoor center that does great trips in the nearby mountains or in kayaks on the ocean. And those are great ways to get physical activity in, even if you don't love going to the gym, like me. And then thinking about getting outside into natural spaces, even if you aren't really excited about exercising, just fresh air, being amongst trees and parks, that can really help if you've been spending a lot of time in your dorm room, being quiet, studying with the windows closed. It can start to really affect you. So getting outside is important. Eating healthfully is really important. And on campuses, a lot of times you have options for food that is not very healthy. And it's up to you to kind of look for those healthy options that you still enjoy so that you can be balanced with your diet as well. And of course, we know that sleep is very important, which can be really hard if you have a roommate who is maybe loud in the evening, or there's just so much going on that you want to do everything and you don't have time to sleep. But sleeping is very important. And if you don't sleep enough, you may find yourself out of balance again in other aspects of wellness. And then, of course, every campus has a student health center. So if you really do start feeling physically ill, you have a cough or something like that, there are places you can go to get that taken care of. So keep in mind that that resource exists. All right, let's move to the second realm of wellness, which is emotional wellness. And this is something that's become more talked about, more important in the last decades, but especially in the last couple of years with everything that's gone on in the world. And there are so many supports for your emotional wellness at US campuses. There are almost always counseling and wellness centers. And these are things that maybe you wouldn't consider using in your countries. It may not be as common. There may even be like a stigma, like, oh, you can't go to see a counselor unless it's really bad. But that's not true. On US campuses, it's very common for students to seek out counseling to help when they have trouble with their roommates, with relationships, with their classes. Whenever you're feeling out of balance, it can be good to see a counselor. And then if you don't want to go see individually a counselor, that feels too weird, a lot of times there are groups or activities where you can come together with other people to maintain your wellness. So at Western, we have what's called Wellness Wednesdays, and those are drop-in activities and classes to work with somebody who is a professional in the field, but not feel like it's really serious one-on-one. It's also very, very important to maintain your relationships, both at home, so with your family, with your friends, and of course with your new friends that you're making on campus. So I know that Miriam is going to talk more about American culture and overcoming culture shock, but that's a huge part of your emotional wellness. Another part of your emotional wellness is self-care. So you can see in that photo some students in the hot tub, but any way that self-care works for you, whether that's getting out for a walk or having like a hot tea or hot chocolate in the evening, to just give yourself that time to again assess and check in, make sure that you're doing well in these aspects of wellness is important. So I know I'm talking a little bit quickly. I'll pause there for a second. So physical and emotional, those are the two that you hear about the most, I think. But other really important aspects of wellness are social wellness. So thinking about creating a community where you feel comfortable, you feel like you belong, that is a really, really important aspect of being a student, and especially an international student. So connecting with clubs, connecting with events on campus. We have a Western Involvement Network at Western Washington University, where we post all the events and organizations have their contact info. Getting involved, taking the first step to reach out to clubs and be a part of those events is really important. Like I said before, outdoor center trips, getting involved with residence hall activities. And even though, of course, your studies are really, really important, just noting to yourself how important it is to make time for friends, make time for that community that you're building, because that is what's going to make you want to stay. Classes are really important, grades are really important, physical health is really important, but that social feeling of belonging and being happy where you're at with this group of people is one of the most important aspects of wellness in my mind. So considering your social wellness is very important. And I'm just going to kind of move quickly through these last aspects because I want to make sure we have time for everyone. But financial wellness can be a huge part of being an international student. It is incredibly stressful to feel that there is a financial burden on you all the time. So if you're feeling that way, here are some things that we recommend at Western that you do. Maybe keep a budget and try to track your spending. Note where maybe you could bring costs down a little bit. Maybe making some food in your dorm room rather than eating at a restaurant all the time, or choosing activities that are free in town rather than things that have a cost. Of course, looking for scholarships, and there are offices on campus that will help you do that. It can be a little harder as an international student, but your international student advisor will be there to help you when you're looking for those things. And this may not be close to your mind when you're thinking about your financial health, but making sure that you just take care of things like your taxes. If you're in the United States, you are supposed to file for taxes, even if you don't make any money. And again, your international student advisor will help you with this, but just making sure it's easy. It's a small form. Just take care of it, send it in, and then you don't have to worry about it being a challenge later in life. If you're struggling and finances are a big issue, there's often resources on campus like food pantries where you can go get food or essentials like toothbrush, toothpaste for free. And that can feel very odd to need that, but it's there for all students. It's there for people to take advantage of when they need it. If it helps you feel financially well and healthy, it's a good thing to do. And like I said, making financial choices that are healthy, like maybe limiting your personal expenses or cooking, is always helpful. Another aspect of wellness is intellectual wellness. And I won't spend too much time on this, but tutoring centers and writing studios and going to your academic advisor, all of these things will help you feel like you are doing the best you can in your intellectual pursuits, in your classes, and that can help take a lot of stress off so you don't, get out of balance in your emotional wellness or your physical wellness. One thing I have on this slide that I just want to reiterate for all students is that you should feel free to talk to your professors. Send them an email. Ask them to meet with you. If you're struggling, if you're feeling stressed about classes or a project, it's really open in the United States to communicate with your professors. And that will help you feel that you're taking good action to help overcome any problems you might have in your intellectual wellness area. Okay. All right, I'm going to just say occupational wellness is about pursuing a career that fulfills you, so you can use different services on campus to do that. And if you have any questions about any of these aspects of wellness, please feel free to email me. I don't have time to go into all of them today, but that's a really important piece. Environmental wellness, as we're looking at the world, the wider world around us, thinking how we can give back and feel good about the impact that we are having on campus or in our lives, definitely something to consider. Here at Western, we have the Outback Garden where you can learn to grow food or be a part of that group of people who are interested in that kind of thing. And then I think this is the last one, but your spiritual wellness is really important as well, whether you are religious actively or not. Finding ways to, again, take that time to center yourself and be aware, and that will help you kind of make sure that all aspects of your wellness come together. So that's like our general 8 dimensions of wellness there. I hope that was helpful in thinking about wellness on a broader spectrum as a student, not just your physical wellness and maybe your mental wellness, but overall, all the things that can come together to create a happy and healthy study abroad experience. So reflecting, were there any of those dimensions that were surprising to you? And if there were, please feel free to reach out. There's my email on the screen. And I'll just leave you with, there's our mascot, Victor Viking. So we say, go Vikings at the end. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carissa. That was really, really useful and a really great way to not feel overwhelmed, I think, because there's so many aspects and human beings are so diverse and sometimes we are very complex and you don't really know where things may be a little off, and dividing it in that way can help, you know, to do that scan and assess and act, right? And now we'll hear from Miriam from Albertus Magnus. She has some valuable content as well to share on maintaining our health while being an international student. Take it away, Miriam. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Carissa, for explaining that there are different aspects to our wellness. I'm going to be focusing on a couple different aspects that she kind of touched upon a little bit. So I'm coming from Connecticut, Albertus Magnus College specifically, and just a little bit about us. We are in the East Coast. We are closer to in between New York City and Boston. So similar to the other presenters today, we come from a little bit of a colder climate in the winter. And just a little bit of background about my student population that I work with is I work with undergraduate students as well as graduate students. We have a small, student to faculty ratio, which really helps with students being able to focus on that intellectual side of their wellness dimension. And we offer scholarships to our students just to keep in mind, but more importantly, because we're rooted in the Dominican tradition, we have 4 pillars, which I think is really complements wellness: study, service, prayer, and community. And Carissa did a really good job about kind of explaining that wellness is multidimensional and it's not just mind, it's not just body, but there's all different aspects. So I'm going to kind of start with mental health and focus on that. And as an international student, a big part of mental health is adapting to your culture. And what culture, we like to look at it as it's the air we breathe, right? We are fishes swimming in the water, and culture is the water, we are the fish. So when we have our own culture, we don't really understand always kind of the nuances of another culture. And something that's really important to kind of prepare you with your journey of studying the United States is to be aware of the cultural differences, what's seen as kind of more rude or maybe not the norm behavior, because a lot of times what's ingrained in us culturally, it just comes naturally. We're not even aware that we're doing it. We don't know that this is kind of our perspective, our frame of mind. So with American etiquette, I'm going to kind of go over a couple different things. But I also just want to start with United States is a huge country, you know, so I'm coming from New England. You're going to hear from a representative from the Midwest, and we also heard from Carissa from the West Coast. You have the southern states, you have Colorado, the Southwest. So within the large country of the United States, you have subcultures as well. So styles vary depending on the state that you're going to be going to. So if you have a friend that's going to be studying in Boston, but you're going to be studying in Georgia, you may, you know, if you visit them in Boston, you might realize, wow, the demeanor is different. The culture is a little bit different. So it's something to keep in mind. What I'm going to be talking about today is kind of an overview, a general kind of look at American etiquette. And hopefully this will be helpful for you when you arrive and you're engaging in you know, the community that you'll be in. So
Miriam, just a quick interjection. If you want to reshare your slide, because it's kind of cutting off at the logo, in case you want to reshare. Otherwise, the content is readable. Everything you can read is just in case you want to reshare. So the logo is complete.
Okay. Yeah. Is this better?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think when we're talking about different etiquette, and something that it's important to kind of keep in mind is, how do we communicate non-verbally? So when you go to your American university, when you meet new people, you may want to kind of reach out, as you know, to them with a hug, and or maybe like a kiss on the cheek. That might be kind of something natural for you. When someone offers their hand and they're greeting you with a handshake, it doesn't mean that there's a dislike. It just means that culturally, Americans tend to be a little bit more, we like a little bit more of a distance when we're talking to someone, when we're meeting someone. Typically, when we have a really good friend or a family member, that's when we go in for a hug as a greeting. So don't be alarmed or surprised when you're meeting your international student advisor, or you're meeting other international students, or you're meeting a professor. You know, a handshake is the most common greeting, and there is a little bit of a distance. So when you're meeting your professor and you're at the classroom, typically they're not going to greet you physically, but they will, you know, let you know what they want to be called. Do they want to be called Dr. Joy? Do they want to be called Stephen? Do they want to be called Professor Joy? So typically you'll get an idea of how formal or informal they are. Next, just in general, Americans, we prefer a little bit more personal space. So, you know, if you join the international orientation and you're, you know, with other students, they might be standing close to you. If they're from other cultures, that's more common. But when you're in class and you're meeting American students, they may prefer to be a little bit further apart. And that's because that's just our culture. That's something that we're more comfortable with. We don't even think about, but you know, if you were in an elevator with an American at your university, they may move a little bit away from you. And that's nothing negative against you. It's just our comfort zone. Another thing to kind of mention is time. How we view time in America is different than how other countries view time. And punctuality is important. If you arrive late to class, for many, many universities, that will count against your grade. So being on time, being early, even to class, is really ideal. When you have, when you're meeting with your professor or a staff member of the university, it's really important to be there on time when you agreed to. We look at time as more of a commodity and something that should be structured and contained. In a lot of cultures, they view time as a little bit flexible, negotiable, but we are more strict with our view of time. In the same line as on this topic, when we want to meet with someone, we look at this as, in order to respect your time, time is valuable. I need to communicate and agree on a time to meet with you. It's not that you can't ever drop into an international student advisor's office, but don't be offended or alarmed when they say, I can't talk to you right now, I have a meeting, or let's please set up a meeting. You're going to hear that a lot from your professors, from staff, even friends. When you get to know friends, especially American friends, they may say, okay, well, what time are we going to meet at? So it's going to be obviously more informal with your friends, but just be aware that when you're meeting with someone, especially professional staff, such as your professor, your advisor, you want to adhere to the time that you agreed upon, and scheduling an appointment with that individual is a sign of respect. So when we're talking about American culture and we're talking about etiquette, I think it's really important to talk about the American values. It's easy for people to watch movies and kind of get an idea of an overlap of American values, but once you're living in a different country and you're experiencing that culture day to day, sometimes it could be helpful to have an idea of why do Americans do the things they do. So one of the things that we value and is culturally ingrained in as Americans is direct communication. So when I say direct communication, I mean that we kind of, for the most part, in general, we mean what we say, and we expect a certain amount of transparency when we communicate with another person. So in a lot of cultures, there's a value of harmony, there's a value of kind of getting along. In American culture, especially in business, especially when you're working with a professor or a professional staff, there's an expectation that let's get to the point. We are meeting today to talk about applying for on-campus jobs. So there's going to be a minute or two of, how was your day? How have you been doing? But don't be alarmed when that conversation quickly goes to, okay, so what kind of on-campus employment are you looking for? It doesn't mean, it may be hard at first to get used to not having that kind of time period of really getting to know a person, but we tend to get to know people in stages slowly with time. And we prefer to have a little bit more of a boundary of what we're talking about in the conversations that we have. Another important thing to keep in mind about American culture and values are we are coming from a very individualistic society. We are one of the most individualistic societies in the world. So when I say individualistic, what do I mean by that? That means that we look at ourselves as separate from our family, from our friends, from our country even. So we look at ourselves as almost like an island away from others. And when we make decisions, when we think about what we need to do or our actions, sometimes it's very narrow and we don't think about our family sometimes. You may hear your professors or you may hear American friends kind of question your relationship with your family and say, well, why does it matter what your mom thinks? Or, why don't you, just take some time and not call your parents back every Sunday? Like maybe you need time on your own. There's just a different perspective that we have in the United States that may make it difficult for you to get used to and for you to understand the perspective that people are coming from. Another kind of difference that American culture has is our view on authority. So kind of going with this individualistic perspective, authority, we look at it as something to be questioned. We want to do this in a respectful manner, But we tend to be, we are a colony originally from the United Kingdom. And so the birth of the United States was based off of questioning authority. So that means, as Chris has said before, is ask questions in class. If you don't agree with your professor, there can be a polite way to challenge the professor in class even. You're allowed to have your own opinion. You're allowed to have your own point of view. And you may have colleagues, you may have peers that don't agree with you, but they can still respect you. So it's important to keep in mind that we are looking at our interactions with others from an individualistic society that questions authority. And we also have a little bit more of an informal kind of relationship, and there's a lower power distance between us and our supervisors. So many times, as I mentioned before, when you interact with your professor, they may or may not want to be called Dr. Sozak. They may say, oh no, please call me John. I prefer to go by John. Or please call me Professor John. So you'll get to know kind of the comfort level when you interact with other people. Just want to touch upon taboo subjects. So some of the things that we try to avoid talking about and it's our way of kind of maintaining harmony, as religion and politics. These are things that once you get to know someone a little bit better and kind of maybe they're a friend of yours, then you can kind of really dive into those conversations. But that's not something that we really try to talk about when we're meeting someone for the first time. And there's going to be different things that you're going to be encountering, and you'll get to know slowly kind of things not to say or things not to do, and where the safe areas are. So with a little bit about background about American cultures and where the American students, your future peers, are coming from, I want to kind of talk about culture shock. Coming to a new country is exciting. Maybe you've been to the United States for travel. Maybe you visited LA, Florida, New York City, and you had such a wonderful time and it was a week-long vacation. Maybe this is your first time coming to the United States. But typically when you are studying, this is going to be a 4-year, 2-year, 1 year, maybe even 1 semester experience. So it's going to be a very different experience than you have when you're traveling somewhere on vacation. So the first symptom or stage rather of culture shock is the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase, everything is great. This is so much fun. I love this place. You're in love. You're excited with, the place that you're at. And everyone, the stages are going to be different durations and you can go in and out. But typically when you go to the United States and you're there and you're starting your college career, there's so much excitement. And then slowly, or maybe quickly, you start to experience frustration, whether it's due to cultural misunderstandings, whether it's due to not having that certain, the food that you really like. There's going to be things that come up for everyone that makes you frustrated, makes you miss home, and it's going to be really hard. Now, for some people, that's after a week. For other people, that's after a couple of years. So depending on where you're at, it may take longer or quicker to feel this sense of frustration. It may be gradual or it may happen very quickly. So something to kind of keep in mind, as Carissa mentioned, is kind of reflecting and just taking the time to touch in with yourself. The third stage of culture shock is adjustment. So we're going to talk about different tools that you can utilize to adjust to a culture. Part of the adjustment to a new culture is knowing the culture and understanding it, being able to fit in, being able to adapt in the sense where it's not as uncomfortable to do the handshake instead of the hug. You feel more comfortable to ask questions in class instead of your professor calling on you because you're so quiet. So slowly and gradually, people are able to learn more about the culture so they can adapt to it. And then the last stage of culture shock is acceptance. And that's when you understand the positive parts of the new country that you're in. You realize that there's going to be certain things that you miss about home, about your country, but you understand and you are at a place of acceptance where it's okay. It's all right that you don't have mom's home cooked food, or your sister isn't, just in the next room. It's okay, and you are ready to move on for the next challenge. So I'm just going to touch on kind of ways to deal with culture shock, but a big benefit that we have in American universities is professional counseling. So I had a student that I was working with from Dominican Republic. She was super excited to be in the United States. She loved Albertus Magnus College. She was making friends. She was getting really acquainted with college life, but she was just really stressed out. She was really overwhelmed. And after she took, the advice of seeking counseling with a professional, she really felt a benefit. And it took a lot of time for her to take, have the courage and to talk to someone confidentially in this perspective, because from the Dominican Republic, mental health is still very stigmatized, and it wasn't something that she felt like she would be comfortable with doing. A year later, she's doing so well. She's in a wonderful place with her grades, which were really struggling with her mental health. She has a clear mind, and she's more able to organize her time and manage her time. So she's really someone that has benefited from individual counseling sessions, and it's worked really well for her. Something else that one can do when you're feeling frustrated, when you are, feeling the shock, the culture shock, and experiencing, the loneliness of being away from home or the stress, is meditation. So some of the benefits of meditation include they help control anxiety, promote emotional health, and enhance self-awareness. You're not, the more self-aware you are, the more you're in touch with what your needs are. And another way to combat culture shock and to kind of move on to the adjustment phase is get involved. As the presenter mentioned earlier, there are many ways to get involved. That's through Student Government Association, have a voice on campus. We have the campus activity board where we plan events. There's various clubs, so you can really dive into your interests and meet other students that have similar interests. And just in general, you don't have to get committed to joining a club or a student organization, but just talk to your professors, see how you can get involved in the capacity that you feel comfortable. And even outside of the college experience, get to know the town or the city that you're in. Travel if you're able to do that, because part of this college experience and this new chapter of your life is really living your life to the fullest and experiencing American culture in various aspects. So I'm just going to touch upon physical health because, as mentioned before, physical health really helps enhance our mental health, and it helps kind of deal with our stress. So as mentioned earlier, most, if not all, American universities will have some type of health center. They're going to have a fitness center or pool, as we do at Albertus Magnus College. You can get involved with sports. That's a great way to make friends, to adjust to American culture by, having friends that you feel comfortable enough with, or feel part of the family that a sports team can provide. In addition to sports, there's intramural sports. So if you don't want to join a team, you can, see if you can join the intramural basketball team, or, every so often as you see fit. And with campus recreation, that's another way to kind of get involved, not only help yourself stay fit and active, but also make friends and explore different ways that you enjoy to exercise. So there's, yoga classes at many universities. There's badminton. There's so many different types of ways to get involved and get active on college campuses. So I challenge you, explore. This is a time to explore yourself, whether you're an undergraduate student or a graduate student. This is a time to get to know about the subjects you're studying, but it's also a time to really focus on your health. And part of that is your physical health. So this concludes the portion of my presentation. My name is Miriam Randall. If you need to reach out to me, if you have any questions, feel free to do so at mrandall@albertus.edu.
Thanks so much, Miriam, for that valuable information. And now we'll move on to Oresta, who's gonna share some of the joys of Minnesota and how to stay healthy and happy with that much snow. Take it away, Oresta. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Education USA for having me in this presentation, and thank you to all of you for being here today. So my name is Oresta, and I'm representing Winona State University. Please let me know if you can see the slide.
Yes, we can see them perfectly.
Okay, thank you so much. So just to let you know a little bit about Winona State University, it's kind of a small to medium school with an overall enrollment of about 7,000 students. This is kind of a picture that you see here is what campus looks like in the summer. And I will be talking a little bit about the different seasons that we get in Minnesota. So this brings me to the next slide, where you can see the picture of the map of the United States, and the state in purple is Minnesota. So you can see that it is located in the north. It actually borders Canada. So having said that, Winona is located in the southeastern part of Minnesota, and we have 4 different seasons. So right now is summer. We do have fall, and in the fall the leaves will turn different colors, and then comes winter. So winters in Minnesota tend to be cold. There's probably lots of snow, not so much the past 2 years, but we do get snow. And in spite of that, there are still many things that you can do in Winona, Minnesota. So as we are talking about mental health and healthy body and the healthy mind, one of the things that you can expect to experience, you may or you may not, but just so that you are aware of it, is called a seasonal affective disorder. And it's kind of easy to remember if you remember this as an abbreviation, if you are feeling sad, right? So this type of disorder is a kind of depression. I'm sure you know what that means. But this disorder is based, it has a seasonal pattern. So as an example, this can happen especially in the winter time, because the days are shorter, the nights are longer. The winter may last, 3 to 4 to 5 months. There may not be so much sun outside. And there are some symptoms that you may be feeling because of that. So you may be feeling sad, you may be oversleeping, or your sleeping schedule is off. Your appetite may change. Some people may gain weight. They may feel tired or low on energy. So these are some of the symptoms that you may be aware of, but the good thing is that there are things that you can do that definitely could help. And both of the presenters before me have touched on this. They've mentioned that staying physically active is a really good thing, not only for your body, for your physical body, but also for your mind. So getting outside, going to the recreation center. You also would need to focus on your emotional state. So sometimes when we are feeling sad or depressed, we are focusing more on the negative. We are thinking that everything is not right. However, there are some ways to think more positively. For example, you can think of what you are grateful for. In the end, you made this huge journey to the United States. You are one of the bravest people that I know. Like I tell this to our students, there are definitely things that you can find that are positive in your life as well. Another aspect that would be really important for you is to keep your social relationships. So get together with friends, do things together, watch a movie, or go outside for a walk. Even it could be simple as that. To keep your intellectual life well and active, one suggestion is take up a new hobby or try something that you haven't tried before. It really brings you joy and happiness to do something that you've never tried before. So we did talk about some spiritual activities, so mindfulness, meditation, a yoga class, if you are into that kind of thing. And of course, environmental aspects would be getting outside, breathing the fresh air, doing something active will also make you feel better. So this brings me to some more things about Winona, Minnesota, because we are located in the Midwestern part of the US. It's also a very beautiful part of the country. We are located on the Mississippi River. So there are lots of activities that you can do. And I'm sure that you can find many of these activities in other places, especially the other two universities represented here. So, for example, bicycles, you can go biking on the many trails that we have here. You can do water activities. There is a lot of woods and trees. Just taking a walk, along the trail may also do the trick, as they say. So when we talk about the seasonal affective disorder, and I told you that it happens mainly in the winter time, there are things that you can do, such as go skiing. You can also go sledding on the snow. You can also go ice skating. However, I also wanted to show you that there are some unique ways that you can spend time in the northern parts of the states. For example, people can ride bikes. Did you know that people can ride bikes in the snow? We also have ice climbing, so you can climb a bluff in summer, but you can also climb it in the winter time. And finally, you can go snowshoeing. So in the photo on the right, you see this is called a snowshoe, and perhaps you have tried it before. And if you haven't, I absolutely encourage you to try. So it's just a type of a shoe that you put on and you keep walking and exploring the different trails that we have. So as you can see, there are many activities to do in any season. As my previous presenters have mentioned, the health and wellness of students in the US is kind of important. You will find a health services office in pretty much any university. Many universities will provide the mental health support. We encourage students to go and use the Integrated Wellness Center, where you can play basketball, run, work out, where you can just go to different classes. We also encourage students to join different clubs and organizations. And I included two photos of the two dogs here because our counseling services office puts these two dogs. One's name is Aiden and the other is Winston. They are listed as part of the staff of the counseling services. So, you know, they can also really relieve stress. If you have a pet at home, you may know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, try it out. Sometimes we have these dogs just kind of walking along campus and students come up and pet them and talk to them. And even that already kind of helps if you are feeling sad or miss home. Of course, make use of your academic services. Many universities have advisors who will guide you through your career on campus. They will also have career services that will help you with your resume, how to look for a job and things like that. And one of the maybe most important pieces for new students is the new International Student Orientation. So for example, in my school at Winona State University, at the International Student and Scholar Services, we organized the orientation just about a week and a half before classes begin to help students with many questions, right? To help them settle at the university, in town, to help them set up banking accounts, to finalize registration for classes. We also do different activities. We advise students from the very first question that you ask by email or social media, all the way until you arrive to campus. And we provide resources. So if you don't know where to go at first, you are welcome to stop in here or email or contact us and just ask. And we will, if we don't know the answer, we will guide you and direct you to another service on campus. So that said, here is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out. I also want to say thank you again for joining, and I want to wish you good luck on your new journey.
Thanks so much, Oresta, for the information you shared. That part of trying ice climbing, that sounds like an intense but fun activity. You would definitely release some endorphins and laughter, hopefully. And the part of the dog, the counseling dogs, that's amazing. That is, pets are such a magical treatment, right? So we have a couple questions that we can quickly respond to the students. First, thank you so much for that content. I know this is going to be a valuable resource that I'm sure the students who joined live can use and or share with other international student mates, right? So one question that's really simple. Are there costs associated with using on-campus resources, such as the recreational centers or counseling? Maybe Carissa, can you help us out?
Sure, I think it is dependent on your university, but in general, these costs will be kind of grouped together in what are called mandatory student fees. And they kind of get lumped in with your tuition. So you pay tuition and fees to attend the university, and that gives you access to all of those resources. So we say it's free, it comes with it, but it's really just because it's included in that total that you're paying. Because universities think these services are so important, right? They aren't necessarily this optional, you can pay for it if you want it. It's more, we want everyone to have access to it because your physical health, your mental health, your social health, all of that is really important as a part of your student journey.
Great. Oresta and Miriam, is that the same scenario with your schools?
Yes, and I would just say, because you're paying for it, take advantage of it. Definitely utilize those services and, ask your friends if you're unsure how, if they've had good experiences. I know with counseling, sometimes it can be tough if you've never been to a therapist before, but, start with asking friends or your international advisor if you're uncertain.
Yes, and we also include the fees in the overall payment. And I would encourage students to just step out of their comfort zone and try it. Absolutely use them.
Excellent, thank you. Another question. Do you think it is true that in the first year of studies in the US, you perform worse than the other years because of the adaptation? What do you think? Maybe let's start with Oresta. What's your opinion on this?
Sure. So I think the first year or the first semester may be a hard one because you are adjusting to the differences. We talked about culture shock, right? We talked about how different an American classroom may be from what you are used to. So I think the first year may be difficult, but perhaps not for everyone, and to a different extent, right? So you are also adjusting to the different type of food, that would be a big thing as well. So, as my colleague said before, you would just need to persevere, try again, keep going, and eventually, once you learn of the differences, you would get better.
Right. Medium, what do you think?
Yeah, I think everyone's different. So for some students, the first year can be really difficult because of the academic differences. Maybe, utilizing your English skills academically can be challenging. I've also seen students where, it's the second, their third year that they don't do as well academically because now they're so involved and they're so invested in the different organizations that they're in, or they're a club leader and they're an athlete and they're trying to maintain their grades, and that can be difficult as well. So I think part of something to consider is balancing your time and managing your time and checking in and utilizing the resources such as the tutoring center, asking your professors for help, or asking clarifying questions to your professor or even your classmates too.
Great. Carissa, would you want to add anything?
Sure, I definitely agree with what Oresta and Miriam said. I think sometimes the structure of your major program also will affect that, because a lot of times at the beginning of your the major that you decide to like specify in, my words are going crazy right now, but you know, if you want to be an engineer, or you want to study political science, or you want to study theater arts, right? That's your major. And some of those will have much more difficult classes as you go on through the program, where the beginning part of the program is meant to be a little bit lighter, introduction classes. And so you may kind of have this false sense of, oh, college is easy in the first year or two. And then you get into the higher level classes and it gets much more challenging. So it's just something to kind of think about as you're going through your program, and something that's really important to utilize the academic advising office on your campus for, because they will be able to help you create a path through to get to graduation that won't involve, hopefully, a lot of really stressful classes all at once. And yeah, I think just always doing that kind of check-in with yourself. Some people may find it harder at first. Some people may feel like, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't feel culture shock. This is great. And then a year and a half later, they start to feel a little bit out of whack or are missing home a lot. Just to know that it all happens on your own timeline, and kind of to expect that there might be moments that aren't as great, but know that you will get through those, and overall the experience will be super enriching. But just to kind of manage those expectations going in, I think is really important.
Yes, thank you. And also always including a little bit of patience and grace with yourself, as if you were a friend, you know, and not be too hard on you, so that you can, you know, get up and keep going if any hardship were to come your way. Now we have one pretty specific question. If a student has a possible case of anorexia and depression, can she or he also receive treatment while being in college? Would you suggest they seek help as soon as they get to campus? I don't know who would like to share their opinion. Maybe Miriam?
Yeah, I can go first. So with my experience working with students with different mental health or challenges, you know, the first start is you can go to counseling center, and they can be kind of start to assess what's going on with this case, anorexia. Depending on the school, you know, the health center and the counseling services available, they may or may not refer you to outpatient services. And what that means is it's just a little bit more in-depth treatment. So depending on the severity of what you're struggling with, it may require a little bit more attention and care than what can be provided in a counseling office at a university. So you want to start there, because they're going to kind of be able to assess you, work with you, and hopefully provide you that immediate help that you may need. And then let you know if you do need to be referred to outpatient services, which depending on your health insurance provider may or may not be covered. So you may have to work with your international student advisor to kind of talk about what your health insurance coverage takes care of if you do need outpatient care.
Yeah, Carissa or Esther, do you want to add anything?
I think that covers it. Yeah, just to really be aware of what will be covered outside of what can be taken care of on campus, because that can be a surprise to international students that their health insurance doesn't cover everything. So it's important to know what coverage you have.
Yeah, okay. And I think it's important to emphasize, in my opinion, the greatest and the first resource may be already on campus, and it could be handy, and it could be already covered by the student fees that you pay, as well as implementing all of these tools that Oresta, Miriam, and Carissa shared, being aware of yourself and mindful of yourself to identify anything that may be coming up that may require outside help. We are not mighty, we have a lot of power, yes, and we have a lot of capacities, but they're specialists, right? People that do this for a living and that can help us navigate anything that we may be struggling with while being an international student. So that was it for the questions. Thank you, Oresta, Miriam, and Carissa, for your time, for the content. Thank you, everyone that joined us and everyone that's going to watch this later. Hope this helps so that you have an amazing experience in the US as an international student, and keep everyone posted on how you're doing, and stay in touch with your Education USA office. And thanks, stay healthy and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.